come here to chew bubble gum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubble gum.
Perhaps you wondered why I just stepped away from the desk. If you're watching, I'll get into my intro in a second. I stepped away from the desk because Demi, the studio cat, just scared the living crap out of me by rubbing around my legs. I almost never wear pants, I wear shorts. And it's a dark room in here, and the next thing I know, there's something rubbing around my legs, and I just about had a heart attack. Okay, so I had to go let the cat out. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the bloviating Semblance Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here on the SHR Media Network. You got a belly up to the bar. We kept your seat. It's great to see you back. Angel's going to be your bartender tonight. She pours with the best of them, and the lava lamp is, in fact, lighted back here. Whoa, got a little closer these days, which means you can listen and chat at shrmedia.com. You can watch the show on the SHR Media Facebook page, YouTube channel, and on Periscope under the name of SHR Media Group. We don't water our drinks just like we don't water our conversation, politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all here at the saloon. Nothing is sacred. The speech is free, but the booze is not. All we ask is that you flush the toilet, jiggle the handle, and don't forget to tip your waitress. Okay, I don't know. I'm going to have to replay this because I don't know what my face reaction was when all of a sudden there's a cat around my ankles on my bare skin. I hope I didn't jump too much. Okay, it's also good that I was wearing my Depends as well. Hey, moving right along. I've got a packed show tonight. We've got happy stories, we've got news updates, and I'm going to go into an in-depth analysis because of all the crazy things that are going on about President Trump's post-midterm press conference from yesterday. Now, today's Thursday. It is November the 8th, the year of our Lord 2018, and it's just 2 days after the midterms. Well, yesterday, President Trump had a massive news conference, and it went on literally for 90 minutes. And I have to tell you that it was probably some of the most dynamic, disturbing, and illustrative 90 minutes. And if I can get away with playing it, I'm going to play the whole damn thing because there's so much in there that people need to hear and know about in terms of what's coming on down the line. Already, I got to say welcome to Mike in chat, Mary Brockman in chat, Alan Thomas in chat. Welcome, Alan. One viewer. Just spent the past weekend with Alan Thomas as well, I should say. We went to the ParaQuest Paranormal Conference where he had a speakership there this past weekend. That was in Jackson, California, up in the Motherlode country. And we both stayed up there, had a lot of dinners and breakfasts together, went stomping around in some motels in the old Amador, Maine jail, looking for ghosties and things like that. Had a great time, an absolutely fabulous great time. So, Alan, it's great to see you in chat. I'm going to start out immediately with, here's a story, and this is by Kurt Schlichter. And for those people who are thinking that whatever happened this past Tuesday was bad, I'm here to disabuse you of that thought. And it's my job these days to generally make sure that you are completely understanding the fact that we have not lost control. There are many, many other things that the GOP and conservatives like me could have done and done better. And there are reasons why these things occurred. But in the course of the next couple of weeks, and the next couple of days, and the next couple of shows, we'll get into many of the details about that. But one of the reasons that I was motivated to play the press conference a little bit later on today, after I go through some stories, happy stories, etc., and also the news article by Kurt Schlichter that I'm prepping right now, is that this is a forecast of what's to come. And if anybody thinks that magically, mystically, somehow, bing, civility is going to come back to the media, to what I term the American media maggots, that shit isn't happening. It's done, it's gone. But take a breath. All we lost is the House. We didn't need to lose it. And I just hope that we learn from our mistakes. That's going to be the premise and the theme, pretty much, until 2020. And so perhaps immediately up front, people may ask, BZ, what do you think about 2020? Is it out of the way? Because so many people are telling us, nah, done, gone. You know what? It's looking better and better because the Democrats have decided that they're going to take a particular tack, a particular series of maneuvers that I think are going to end up biting them very seriously in the gluteals, or in, when I was in high school, I used to call the aircraft signaling system. Here's an article by Kurt Schlichter. Look for, and this is precisely why I'm reading this article. Look for Democrats to blow their meager success by being jerks, by Kurt Schlichter, yesterday, townhall.com. Well, I guess there wasn't a blue wave or a red wave. Instead, there was kind of a puke green splash. The Democrats took the House by a pretty small margin, beginning at least 2 years of a divided Congress. And they'll almost certainly screw it up because they're dumb, crazy, and bad. Hello. Thank you very much, Kurt. It's annoying to lose anything, especially to a party that is so manifestly unworthy. But the nature of an electorate that is split 50-50 is splitting. Chin up. Remember, we have the other half of Congress and the presidency and the courts, too. Another story I'll be coming to in the not too terribly distant future. So our agenda is not totally stalled. If you're going to lose anything, lose the House. It's, I like this, the way he typifies this. It's the Maroon 5 of our government institutions. Always there, but no one really likes it. Or in old rock sayings, I guess you could say it's the Nickelback. Hey, I kind of like Nickelback. Oh, boy, am I going to get hate mail for that. We won more seats in the Senate, meaning Cocaine Mitch's expanded cartel is going to be pushing even more conservative judges into our lib-infested courts. It was pretty great. Beto crashed his party's $70 million car into Ted Cruz and skateboarded away from the wreck. Rick Scott scraped out a narrow win and will now have 6 years on the national stage where people around the country will wonder, wasn't he the lead singer for Midnight Oil? Now stop. Now let's go back. The newest story is the fact that apparently there are some problems in Florida, and that's being contested. A veritable horde of Democrat attorneys have descended upon Florida to poke at all the possible holes necessary to Rick Scott. So let's not... At this point, let's not quite say that's absolutely in the bag. And we're rid of Bob Corker and Jeff Flake. Oh, my God. Thank God for small favors. Ahoy, Conservative Incorporated. They're now available to headline your cruises. On the downside, we still have the useless Ben Sass, until a real conservative primaries him, and Utah decided it would be funny to send us Mitt Romney for some reason that remains unclear. Get ready for his binders full of virtue signaling to the very same media that humiliated him in 2012. But in general, the FredoCon contingent is definitely in decline. No, you never win by losing, but there is opportunity for the GOP in this win. When life gives you lemons, you should take those lemons, sell them, and buy beer. While the loss of the House is annoying, Trump has options because he can play it successfully, whether the Democrats make the smart move, pretending to be bipartisan, or do what they are inclined to do and act like horrible, creepy, fascist weirdos. Nancy Pelosi's problem is that though she's smart enough to see that everybody hug is the smart play, her insane caucus is likely to demand the horrible, creepy, fascist weirdo option. And I completely believe with that. Pelosi outlined the foundations of a bipartisan charade in her odd victory speech with the clown car crew that'll make up the new House leadership Tuesday night. Infrastructure problems, drug price reforms were her top objectives. The thing is, both ideas are shovel-ready for Trump to steal. Hadn't thought about that. After all, Trump was promising an infrastructure plan back during his campaign. It was the GOP that was stalling it, not the Demo-rats. He should push the infrastructure program he always wanted and dare the Demo-rats to oppose him. If he really wants to be aggressive, he should aim it towards minority communities that the Demo-rats have traditionally paid attention to right before the elections and then ignored for the next 2 years. He should insist that those communities get a share of the work and the skill training that goes with it, and he should go to them and take credit for it. Polls already show minority approval of Trump is higher than for any other Republican. Time to push that. And Trump has no lingering attachment to conservative doctrine that would stop him from brutalizing Big Pharma for its drug price shenanigans. The giant drug companies still manage to exploit Republicans who defend them with talk of, like free markets and stuff. When it comes to these corporations, the question marks are appropriate. So Big Pharma pushed Obamacare down our throats and has been paying off the GOP suckers to do its dirty work for them for decades because of capitalism. But if they're monopolies and scams or capitalism, hey, get us some Shea T-shirts, because even the Republican mainstream is getting tired of water carrying for the pill pushers. Check this. Oh, Whiskey Dale, good to see you. Welcome. And also to one viewer who will not be unmasked because we don't do that in this show. This is important. When Hugh Hewitt, a solid guy with his finger on the weak pulse of the establishment, starts railing about their perfidy on his radio show, they are primed to be dumped. Remember how Bill Clinton triangulated after the 1994 election? That's the model. As Kurt Schlichter's new book, Militant Normals, explains, normal Americans are not bound by ideology. They're mad at being shafted. And when they see Canadians paying a fraction of what it costs for their Humira, they get a little ticked. One of the nice things about the Trump era is that we now are woke to the fact that big corporations are not necessarily paragons of capitalism, but kind of like socialists dressed up as capitalists to complete the grift. Trump won't hesitate for a second to join the Dems in neutering the drug companies' ability to do what they've been doing to us for years. BZ aside, yeah, that's called populism. Now, the smart move for the Democrats is to go along and rack up accomplishments because these purple districts that just elected Democrats want to see some kind of progress. They're not the hardcore commie lefty districts you find on the coasts. These are kind of suburban districts with vast numbers of unsatisfied, neurotic, college-educated women who are scared of Trump and who are probably secretly attracted to his virility. It's weird, and there's no need to explore that further. Regardless, they would happily vote for the usual old-school GOP dork in normal elections. And even though this time they sent a bitter, frustrated message, they are still suckers for politicians who get things done. But the leftist crew from the coastal, urban, kale-munching strongholds are the ones with the seniority and the ones who will guide the Democrat Party over the next 2 years. And they do not want to work together for a brighter tomorrow. No, what they want is #resistance all the time. And they're going to do everything they can to appease their loony base by launching investigations and screaming and yelling. That's not going to help the newbies keep the new House seats in 2020. It's going to be especially funny when all these rookies who promised the suckers back home that they would never vote for that San Francisco liberal monster get strong-armed into casting their very first vote for Mistress Nancy. And if they decide to obstruct and agitate, then Trump can be in opposition to them and run against the do-nothing House in 2020. Nobody is better than Trump when he has an enemy. You've seen that by now. You know that. I'm kind of hoping the Democrats choose the path for jerkiness just for the nicknames he'll bestow in his tweets. And the final line in Kurt Schlichter's newest article. Oh, and please, impeach him over Russia, treason, traitor stuff. Please. Toss the Trump in that briar patch, and he'll be president forever. Okay, that was a great story. Great article by Kurt Schlichter, which is why I read him. And for those of you who are looking to find Kurt, you can check him on your favorite search engine and go to townhall.com. That's where you can find his stuff, townhall.com. Love me some Kurt Schlichter. Want to get him back on the show. When I had him here, I think I've discovered that there are two speeds for Kurt Schlichter. And I'll tell a quick story back when I was in robbery. And I don't think I'm spilling anything because nobody's going to know who I'm talking about. But my partner in robbery, when I was in detectives, that was one of the places I was, in this goes back to 1994, 1995, right around in there. And his name was Dan Minter. Damn great detective. But Dan Minter was kind of like... Dan, if you've ever had or experienced an individual like this, you will know exactly what the hell I'm talking about. Have you ever had a space violator? And probably you're thinking to yourself, space violator, what the hell are you talking about? Somebody parking a car? No. A space violator is somebody that talks to you and they get like movie close to you. You ever notice in movies when people are having there's some kind of a long exposition and they're talking to somebody else, they're probably about a foot away from each other, and that's to encompass everybody within the screen, you see. Traveling Cynic, great to see you. Welcome to chat. And so Dan Minter was a space violator of the first order, and any time that he would talk to you, you felt like his nose was right in your nose. And Dan was just one of those guys. I found myself having to constantly kind of step back from Dan because Dan was like intense. I typified Dan Minter as a ferret on crank. And Dan Minter, like Kurt Schlichter, I think I'm discovering, has two speeds, on and off. That's the Dan Minter / Kurt Schlichter story. I search around high and low for great stories to bring here to you. And I found another one, relatively short, and I've got a little addendum to it to add, some BZ commentary, if you will. But I bring this to you tonight because this issues forth from the Washington Post. And the Washington Post, whose motto at the top of their building is... well, it used to be democracy dies in darkness, but now they've chiseled that all out, and now what they've got atop their front door is democracy dies in D.C. Just thought I'd tell you that. This article is by a gentleman named Ed Rogers. Keep in mind, this is from the Washington Post. The title, Democrats won the House, but Trump won the election. Okay, now, if I had a producer, which I don't, what you would have heard is Democrats won the House, but Trump won the election. But, of course, I don't have a producer, and that's not what you heard. He starts, while Tuesday night was not a complete win for Republicans, there was no blue wave either. By most measures, they beat the odds of history and nearly everyone's expectations when Democrats were left disappointed at the fantasy of Beto O'Rourke, Andrew Gillum, Stacey Abrams, and other winners kind of fizzling. As you well know, however, some of those are contested. Welcome to Simone in chat. Not one new progressive Democrat was successful bursting onto the scene. It's going to take days to process the meaning of this year's election returns, but the instant analysis is clear. Democrats may have won the House, but Trump won the election. Are you sure? That's from the Washington Post. As I always say in politics, what is supposed to happen tends to happen. I, the writer, Ed Rogers, predicted in August that the Democrats would take the House, but that alone was not enough for most Democrats. As much as this year's midterms offered an obvious opportunity to rebuke President Trump, little of what the arrogant Democrats and members of the mainstream media expected would happen actually did. So much of what they said turned out to be wrong that it will take a while before the significance becomes clear. And if the 2018 midterms prove anything, it's that Trump was standing strong while Democrats and their allies who thought Trump would have been affirmatively rejected are in fact the ones who have themselves been denied. Democrats have underperformed in comparison with the historical markers and general expectations of a midterm cycle. The president's party loses 37 seats in the House on average in midterm elections when his approval is below 50%. But Democrats aren't projected to pick up nearly that many seats. No liberal is going to want to admit it, but Trump is an asset to the Republican Party, while President Barack Obama was a disaster for the Democrat Party. He writes, "Let the message be clear. Voters had a chance to repudiate Trump, and they did not. Much of the commentariat has said this year's elections are about who we are as a country and what America's all about. Well, a lot of America seems to be about supporting Trump. The Democrats thought Trump's negatives would be enough to propel them to victory. The 2018 results show it is clear they need a different path if they think they can win in 2020. The midterms largely followed the conventional wisdom of how midterms are supposed to go. The president's party lost some seats, but by and large what happened was far from the blue wave rebuke that Democrats and their allies in the media said was going to happen. So if the midterms were supposed to be bad for the GOP, and all eyes were on Trump this year, the big question is whether anything about Tuesday night's results supports the idea that Trump was a weight on Republican candidates. Is Trumpism a political blight on the Republican Party? The answer, again, I remind you, this is from the Washington Post. The answer is that Trumpism is a net plus. What that says about the GOP in America is unclear, but for purposes of the 2018 midterms, Trump's a winner. Trump and his allies have an appeal that the elites in New York and Hollywood cannot dismiss or easily combat. All the 2018 Democrat heartthrobs lost. That's got to sap the enthusiasm of the resistance. For the most part, when voters had to decide, the angry left was rejected and Trump was rewarded. Let that sink into your brain-housing group. Just for a little bit. This is only 2 days after the midterms. The GOP gained, I think it was 5 seats in the Senate. And we had, I'll get to this a little bit later, as to the major reason that I think that we lost the House. There are a number of reasons. But I got to tell you this, because I heard this yesterday, I believe. This is a little bit of an addendum to that story. Okay, I happened to hear a bunch of Democrats on television, and they were moaning about Tuesday's election results. Insisting, that there was unfairness, rampant unfairness, because the GOP not only kept the Senate, but added seats to the Senate. Okay, the rallying cry from The View, of course, just for example, was there was clear gerrymandering of senatorial districts which would account for the GOP's results, right? Doesn't that make sense to you? The statement, not just an implication, but a bold statement that the Republicans cheated to hold the Senate. Well, hold up on that there, car wash. One of the statements, this is astounding. One of the statements, and by the way, about a paragraph ago, I should have said a word to you that everybody in chat and everybody listening and everybody in podcast, when I said this sentence, everybody should have been saying to themselves, are you fucking kidding me? Because this is the point. one of the statements, by the way, I need to put this in here. One of the statements regarding this I observed was that from a guy that was promoted as a noted attorney, okay? So besides being patently false, that statement and statements that are similar to that, because that's not the only one I heard, provide some very serious insight into how brain-glazingly, beggaringly stupid the leftists, Democrats, and the American media maggots truly are. History lesson 101 to these morons, okay? There are 100 senators because there are 50 states. 2 senators from each state. There are 435 Congress critters. Senators are elected every 6 years. They cycle, okay, so you only vote for one senator in an election. Congress critters in the House are elected every 2 years. It is possible to gerrymander districts in various states. But think about it. It is impossible to gerrymander districts in the Senate because there are no Senate districts to manipulate. There are 2 senators from every state, period, big or small. Vermont has 2. Rhode Island has 2. California has 2. New York has 2. Senators, both senators, represent the state at large, okay? There are no Senate districts. None. Zip. Zero. The null set. And that's how ridiculous these people are. They have no sense of history, no knowledge, and no curiosity. No interest in learning history at all. So this article from the Washington Post, that's why I found that particularly interesting. Now I'm going to play for you first an ad that was removed from almost every form of social media that I can think of. And it involves, one part of this involved the piece of shit named Louis Bracamonte, who was an illegal immigrant, Mexican, who killed one of my deputies named Danny Oliver. And he's in here in this. Now, this has been said to be a racist ad. And I found it, and I copied it, and I kept it, and it's still around, but it's disappearing at light speed. But I'm going to play this for you, and I want you to tell me why it is that you think that this is racist, because there's not one fact or point in here that is untrue. So let's hear this advertisement that is so terribly racist, according to...
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, please step out of the hallway.
If he's dead, so fucking break up soon, and I'll kill more.
Democrats let him into our community.
See, the only thing if I can regret is if I can steal 2. I wish I could kill more of those motherfuckers. I'll kill more cops soon.
Democrats let him stay. And here are the riots. And here are the caravanners.
He says he wants to apply for pardon for the felony he committed. Attempt of murder.
His felony was attempted murder. Who else would Democrats let in? President Donald J. Trump and Republicans are making America safe again. Now, is that a racist ad? I don't think so. Let's reflect just a little bit before I go on, because we're going to get to some happy stories here. The Democrats took the House 217 to 195, and the GOP gained 3 seats, I believe, in the Senate. And both sides are going to claim victory. And both sides kind of had a bit of a semi-victory to claim of sorts. The LDAM, The leftist Democrats and American media maggots are going to proclaim that the people provided them with a mandate. But I have to ask you, do you really think that that's a mandate? Hold that thought. We'll be right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through shrmedia.com, highplanestalkradio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender ever,
because truth is not always pleasant.
Hey guys, it's Sackhead Clint. I'm excited to tell you about a brand new show here on the SHR Media Network. I'm teaming up with the one and only all-powerful, the bloviating Zeppelin, sitting here to my left, bringing to you a fresh new show here on the network. It's Against Tyranny. And we'll be picking up where the Sackheads left off. Excited to be with you, sir.
Sackheads Against Tyranny.
We're going to chat. We're going to chat Wednesday nights.
SHAT.
Sackheads Against Tyranny.
Wednesday nights, 11 p.m. Oh, it's the same time, right? 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific.
Same SAC time, same SAC channel.
Yep. SHRmedia.com.
See what I did there?
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
Hey, BZ. So the plan's working. You got rid of Sacco. Sean is now stepping away.
I never even saw him.
And I know, and insidious. You know, we talked about this for for the last 3 years, and finally coming to fruition.
You know I'm still in the room, right?
It's almost like he's here still. Did you hear that?
Yeah, it's kind of.
It's amazing. It's kind of
at you.
It's kind of eerie.
Like a poltergeist.
Like a poltergeisty thing.
Yeah, Sackheads Against Tyranny.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Play a little jaunty tune. Play a little Welcome back to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct from the SHR. The sumptuous E Palatial SHR Media Studios, 2 miles from the veritable locus of evil on the entire left coast, the capital sitting, looming, ever evil in Shatramento, Fornicalia, where at night when I go and exit by this door over here to my left, your right, I'll smell sulfur and brimstone because of that lingering evil, which never quits. It never stops just because of its very damn nature. So, I was telling you back before when we left that the LDAM, I'm sure because of this election, are thinking that they've got a mandate right now. And the mandate is going to be to get Trump. You know, impeachment, obstruction, Russia. The theme is not going to change. It's beyond tedious. It's simply mindless. But hell, the Democrats won. It's their game to play, and play it they are going to do. Mark my words. It's this game that is going to be their undoing 2 years from now in 2020. As everybody knows, electorally and politically, it's easy to be the second sled dog barking at the first, okay? But as the first sled dog, the House Dems are going to actually do something, right? So what are they going to do? Correct. Just like Traveling Cynic was saying in Illinois, they're going to raise taxes. They're going to increase in government, and they're going to create more regulations. And by the way, here's another little story. Here's the headline. House Dems already have their list of Trump scandals to investigate. Here it is. The subpoenas are coming. Here comes the flood. With the Democrats having won control of the House of Representatives, President Donald Trump and his crew in the White House and assorted federal agencies can expect to be hit with a wave of investigations and subpoena requests from Capitol Hill. There are dozens of House committees and subcommittees, and each, no doubt, has its own to-do list, so to speak. The House Intelligence Committee, under the chairmanship of Representative Adam Schiff from California, is certainly going to receive aspects of the Trump-Russia probe that House Republicans smothered. The House Foreign Affairs Committee surely is going to consider examining the Trump-Saudi relationship in light of the grisly murder of Jamal Khashoggi, who I don't give one riddly drop of piss about. You can bet the Homeland Security Committee is going to investigate the Trump administration's family separation policy. And the Armed Services Committee is going to examine whether there was any reason for Trump to send about 15,000 to 10,000 troops to the border to deal with a migrant caravan. Invasion. I'm sorry, author. It's an invasion. So, what a lovely, lovely precedent they're setting. I can work with it, okay, because I am likewise done. I'm done with any attempt whatsoever at being conciliatory or invoking compromise or bipartisanship. Isn't it odd that bipartisanship only occurs when the GOP acquiesces to the LDAM? Then and only then is all well, okay? Van Jones says, it's not a blue wave. It's actually a blue war.
This is heartbreaking, though. It's heartbreaking. The hope has been that the antibodies would kick in, that this sort of infestation of hatred and division would draw a response from the American people, really in both parties, to say no and no more. That does not seem to be happening tonight. It's not a blue wave, but it's still a blue war. We've got to continue the fight forward.
It's a blue war. So remember that. As far as they're concerned, it's a war. Even though they won the House, it's a war. But one very unsettling thing, he's right, there was no blue wave as promised. So, customarily on off years, as I've explained, the opposing party tends to gain a whole bunch of gains in seats. Not this time, despite the Democrats they outraised the GOP in terms of sheer dollars. So a veritable tsunami was promised. Instead, what they got was the flushing of a couple hundred toilets. And therein lies the rub. A few points that I'd like to make before we go to start the happy stories. The House really won't get anywhere, really, absent the Senate. The Dems will crow about various items, and that doddering, Botoxed Skeletor is probably going to be Speaker, but even that's not assured. You got to admit a very important thing. Nancy Pelosi grooming herself back as Speaker of the House once again is nothing if not entertaining. And here's some of the best of Pelosi speak in about a minute and a half. She's incoherent. She's confused.
What an eventful morning
gibberish.
has been. Really one that marks a transformative moment when President Bush left office. The deficit was at $1.4 trillion. $1.4 trillion. So you're talking about an enormous amount of money, that the national debt had increased by an enormous amount. The debt was $1.4 billion in terms of the deficit.
She just said trillion.
And you saw the pie chart. This is about the American people and how policy here affects them.
Okay, there's a lot more to that. But here's what's going to happen is the Democrats are going to sit on all sorts of committees, and what they're going to do is they're going to yell at traffic. And then they're going to end up staring at the sun for a couple of hours a day, clutching their copies of Mao's Little Red Book. So some things, okay, they never change. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Cory Booker, and Adam Schiff still have googly eyes. Damn, they creep me out. But you got to make no mistake. My purpose has not changed, nor will it. I exist, I got to tell you, for emphasis, I exist as pushback for the countless hours that exist in the day where the LDAM do nothing but confiscate your eyeballs and your eardrums and stuff falsehoods into every orifice that you possess. They try to inject you with all sorts of kind of like soothing, lathered amounts of free cheese in hopes of acquiring your vote via your naivete. That happens all the time. So let's be plain. By people's ignorance. The racist Democrats, they have no use for you cultured brown people. Blacks, Hispanics, you've been proven to be unreliable in Democrat eyes. You're either a useful tool or you're an obstacle. So American blacks and Hispanics are going to continue to be obstacles. Illegal immigrants of all stripes are the next big thing in terms of a good groomed Democrat, what I call a monolithic voting bloc. But here are some very important things. Sort of a love letter from me to the Democrats. Number one, Donald Trump is still president. Number two, we control the Senate. Not just a wee bit, but bigly. Okay? Bigly. Number three, your control of the House means roughly nothing. And number four, if in doubt, see number 1, 2, and 3 that I just delineated right there. So, I think at this point, quarter till roughly, yeah, you know what? I think it's time for this.
It's time for happy stories and good times.
Here's one. This is from the Washington Times. The feds announced new policy to limit asylum claims ahead of the caravan. This is grand. The administration announced a new policy last Thursday giving President Trump power to block asylum claims from the migrant caravan and other illegal immigrants who plan to jump the U.S.-Mexico border. Mr. Trump is expected to issue a proclamation flexing his national security powers and triggering the new policy, which will then allow Homeland Security to refuse to accept asylum claims unless people come through official border crossings, which is something that they should have done quite some time ago. But wait, what does BZ say? Oh, that's right. There's more. I've had him on the show before. He was here on our Wednesday night show with regard to the election. This is from lidblog.com. And Jeff, I'm prompting your show, and I'm prompting your page, lidblog.com. This is a happy story. Yes, the White House did, in fact, pull Jim Acosta's press credentials. It finally happened. After 2 years of whiny questions and insisting that he be the subject of his own stories, the White House on Wednesday pulled press credentials from CNN's Jim Acosta after he argued with the president over whose opinion was correct, refused to hand over the mic to the next reporter, and pushed away the arm of the White House intern who tried to take the microphone at the president's direction. That is a happy story. Then there's this, again from lidblog.com. Hey, most Americans, including most Hispanics, want the migrant caravans stopped. Wow, the Zogby poll is usually way left-wing, but in this case they published a poll showing that Americans are behind the president on the issue of the migrant caravan. The latest survey by Zogby Analytics finds that 51% of Hispanics and 57% of all Americans back President Trump's policy of preventing the migrant invaders, which is accurate, thank you, Jeff Dunitz, from entering our southern border. I think that's a happy story as well. Here's another one. We've known, I believe, that this shoe was going to drop for a while, and there had been rumors that, after the midterms, well, it came to fruition. Here's what happened. Jeff Sessions was fired, and as promised, Trump ousted Jeff Sessions. And the story goes like this. Embattled Attorney General Jeff Sessions resigned Wednesday, making good on President Trump's promise that he would be out of office after the midterm elections. Mr. Sessions said he was resigning at Mr. Trump's request. He didn't provide a reason for his resignation letter, but praised the president for their work together. Stop. I'm going to go into this at length probably next week, likely on the Chat Show. And I'm sure everybody here in chat has opinions about Jeff Sessions. My opinion, in a nutshell, is this. Jeff Sessions, I believe, knew he was going to recuse himself from the Russia Mueller investigation. It's an if-then equation. If he was going to do that, why did he accept the AG position from Trump? And why didn't he tell Trump up front? I see that as an extreme betrayal to President Trump. Because in retrospect, I'm sure he's a good person, but what does that mean? It means nothing. The cat that I just let out, at the beginning of the show, I'm sure Demi is a good person, but I wouldn't put her in charge of the Attorney General's office, for God's sake. So, any thoughts about that in the chat room? I have some thoughts. Now, here's an intriguing bit of information that's been going around the internet. And then, I kind of tried to start that rumor myself. The rumor that I'm hearing /started was that Lindsey Graham may go in as Attorney General. A lot of people are saying Trey Gowdy. And Trey Gowdy, I'm not really sure about him. Trey Gowdy wants to get back into prosecution. I'm not sure that Trey Gowdy wants to get back into such a deep entrenchment like the Attorney General position. But people are saying that Lindsey Graham may go into the AG's office, that's South Carolina, and that to replace Nikki Haley may be installed by that governor. Nikki Haley quit already, resigned, I should say. I don't think personally that she did the president any favors by resigning or announcing her resignation before the midterms, though she's actually not leaving until December. So that to me brought up some very serious issues. So I'm wondering, and I bet you are too, who do you think is going to replace the AG? Like I say, the current shindig right now going around is that it might be Lindsey Graham. I'm not completely sure about that. Here's another article. I may have crowed about this earlier, but I'm going to crow about it again because this definitely falls into the category of a happy story. Trump has set a record for appointing the most federal appeals judges in his first 2 years. To me, that is a definite happy story. President Trump smashing the record for appointing judges to the powerful federal appeals court with 29 picks confirmed, helping put his stamp on the judiciary well beyond the Supreme Court. Yes, I am a great, masterful supporter of the Supreme Court. And probably many of you today are fully cognizant of what happened to RBG. Ruth Bader Ginsburg fell down in her office and broke 3 ribs. And I still think that if it's not her, there's going to be some other kind of resignation on SCOTUS prior to 2020. And if you thought that there was a fight for Kavanaugh, you have not seen a fight if, in fact, a third vacuum appears. There's going to be a fight. There's going to be a fight like you haven't seen before. I don't know if you guys know about Blexit or have heard about Blexit. That's basically blacks exiting the Democrats. Here's a clip that I've got of a black American who is denouncing basically identity politics, and he's saying that he wants to walk away and did walk away from the Democrat plantation and the party. And I would expect that this guy probably voted. I just wish that more people hadn't stayed away. But in any event, I would suspect this guy has a story that you'll want to hear.
Hello, everyone. My name is Craig Hill, and I live out here in Texas. And I just want to congratulate all the people who are actually joining up with Blexit. Let me tell you, it was in 2008 that I went out there and I actually stomped for the 44th president. I put in a lot of time, energy, and effort because I believe by having someone who looked like me in the Oval Office that he would represent me. Come to find out, he didn't really represent any of us here in America, regardless of what color your skin was. It seems as though he was more willing to actually help the people in Iran than he was in Indiana.
Imagine that. Absolutely. Imagine that. Then here's Samantha Bee, who is saying that, and for those of you who don't know who Samantha Bee is, I'm not going to tell you, but basically she's saying this: if you use the terms now, because she's a leftist, if you use the terms like coastal elites or globalists or Hollywood liberals or George Soros, you are using anti-Semitic dog whistles. Dog whistles.
Reacted to the shooting by condemning anti-Semitism. Always nice when we can agree that some hate crimes are bad. But the truth is, the Republican Party tolerates anti-Semitism and benefits from it. Mainstream conservatives would never say anything negative about Jewish people outright, but there are other words they use, like coastal elites, globalists, Hollywood liberals, or John Leibowitz. And currently, the biggest, loudest dog whistle is George Soros.
Really? That's funny. Jared Kushner and his wife are both Jews. I guess people just completely forgot about that. Here's another happy story, and that is this. Kirstjen Nielsen has said that the migrant caravans are not getting into the United States. She says, don't come. Homeland Security Chief says migrant caravan is not getting in to the United States. She said on Sunday the migrant caravan marching through Mexico is not going to get in. There's a legal way to get into this country. Those who choose to enter legally, they're going to be stopped. I consider that to be a happy story as well. And then there's this from the New York Post. The migrant caravan is just making our borders stronger. I find this very interesting. The activists behind the latest migrant caravan dream of dissolving national frontiers, but all they're doing is hardening existing borders and the hearts and minds of Americans fed up with such stunts and the worldview that inspires them. And again, this is from the New York Post. The sight of more than 7,000, easily 7,000, mostly Hondurans and Guatemalans trekking across southern Mexico en route to the U.S. is sure to rouse the GOP base, which is why most Democrats they're keeping mum from the midterms on. The images also lend credence to heartland anxieties about organized, systematic efforts to pierce U.S. sovereignty and flood the southern border with newcomers. That's exactly what's happening. Also, another good story, a positive story, a happy story. As the caravan approaches, Trump is warning that he's going to cut aid to Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. And to that, I reply, yeah, great. And he's also placed already active troops on the border who are stringing concertina wire, and they're supporting various other groups and the U.S. Border Patrol all along. Trump is also considering a plan to bar entry of all migrants at the U.S. border. He's considering a sweeping executive order that'll block migrants, including asylum seekers, completely, not just vetting them, but stopping every person from coming into the U.S. at the southern border. And that's in a bid to stop that caravan from coming in as well. This is not necessarily a happy story, but there's one at the tail end of it. Oh, I'm coming up to the top of the hour already. For those not familiar, Cuomo, who got reelected by New York as governor again, Andrew Cuomo, is finding new allies in his campaign to try to bankrupt the National Rifle Association. 3 additional states have followed his call to take legal action against the gun rights group's insurance program. And some people say some other states could join. Now, the happy story behind that is, this is from guns.com. Senator introduces bill to warn banks from entering gun policy. New bank legislation aims to curb moves from such institutions as Citigroup and Bank of America when it comes to lending practices focused on those in the gun industry. The No Red and Blue Banks Act, filed earlier as S. 3539, would bar the General Services Administration from awarding contracts to banks that avoid doing business with companies engaged in lawful commerce based on social policy decisions. The proposal, according to U.S. sponsor Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana, is needed to rein in what the lawmaker contends are policies infringing upon the Second Amendment rights of businesses. Then there was this. Completely despicable. This is from the Washington Post. This occurred last night. They were threatening me and my family. Tucker Carlson, a host on Fox News, his home was targeted by protesters. Now, they have since taken this off. Since I brought the story up, this was available on YouTube. I haven't played it before the show. I'm going to see if this audio cut is still available. That may be removed as well, because various other elements were telling me, yeah, it's gone.
We know where you sleep at night.
This is outside Tucker Carlson's house. His house.
State, the caravan is in fact heavily male and highly dangerous. According to Border Control, at least one member of the caravan has already admitted to being a member of MS-13.
So because these are his stories, these people have decided that they're going to find his house, take pictures of his house, put his address on a placard, take pictures, and send it out into social media. They think that's a great idea. What happened is, I called my wife, Carlson told the Washington Post in a phone interview. She'd been in the kitchen alone getting ready to go to dinner, and she heard pounding on the front door and screaming. Somebody started throwing themselves against the front door and actually cracked the front door. His wife, thinking it was a home invasion, locked herself in the pantry and called 911. Tucker Carlson said, the couple have 4 children, though, but luckily none of them were home at the time. It wasn't an invasion. It was a protest. So there's social media posts about this. Those Antifa leftists, oh, isn't that funny that all those social media posts by Smash Racism DC, it's a local Antifa organization whose members have decided it's a great idea to go trash other people's homes. Oh, and they spray painted his driveway and his house as well. They used a bullhorn. They accused him of promoting hate. So this is the standard thing now done with regard to leftists. Coming up next, we're going to have a detailed analysis, and guaranteed there are going to be some things in the Trump press conference from Wednesday, guaranteed, that you have not heard. Folks, you're listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin live and direct right here on the SHR Media Network, shrmedia.com. Go nowhere.
My goal is never to put you on the spot, but I got to ask you the question that people would stop and ask you in an airport, and that is, where do you see this?
Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capitol, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through SHRmedia.com, HighPlainsTalkRadio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on BlogTalkRadio.com. There's
no surrender ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Hey guys, it's Sackhead Clint. I'm excited to tell you about a brand new show here on the SHR Media Network. I'm teaming up with the one and only all-powerful, the bloviating Zeppelin sitting here to my left, bringing to you a fresh new show here on the network. It's Against Tyranny. And we'll be picking up where the Sackheads left off. Excited to be with you, sir.
Sackheads against
tyranny. We're going to chat. We're going to chat Wednesday nights. Sackheads Against Tyranny.
Wednesday night, 11 p.m. Oh, it's the same time, right? 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific.
Same SAC time, same SAC channel.
Yeah. SHRmedia.com.
See what I did there?
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m., Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
Hey, BZ. So the plan's working. You got rid of Sacco. Sean is now stepping away.
I never even saw him.
And I know, and insidious. You know, we talked about this for for the last 3 years, and finally coming to fruition.
You know, I'm still in the room, right?
It's almost like he's here still. Did you hear that?
Yeah, it's kind of.
It's amazing. It's kind of
at you.
It's kind of eerie.
Kind of a poltergeist.
Like a poltergeisty thing.
Yeah, Sackheads Against Tyranny.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
We are entering the second hour. You're listening to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct from the SHR Media sumptuous and palatial studios, where Demi the studio cat scared the living crap out of me at the beginning of the show, which is why if you watch this in retrospect after I've completed tonight, go to the very beginning of the show, where just as the music starts, BZ gets up and leaves, and you can't see it, but I go around the desk and open the door for the cat to get out, because the cat was in here. The studio was dark. I'm wearing shorts, not pants, and all of a sudden, the next thing I find, there's something rubbing around my legs. I wasn't anticipating that, and luckily I was wearing Depends at the time. I told you that I was going to play for you the President's press conference. And it is with this, according with also my very salient comments that accompany this,
listen in to the President of the United States.
that this will tell you all you need to know about the leftists, the Democrats, and the American media maggots. Trump carried on for 90 minutes in this.
It was a big day yesterday.
And he talks about the election, the midterms. The place was packed with reporters, and all they did was live to give him absolute hell. It's from this particular press conference that I'm playing that Jim Acosta from CNN had his press credentials at the White House temporarily suspended. Let's listen in. Dave, welcome. Thanks to coming into chat.
Coverage, to put it mildly, the media coverage set a new record and a new standard. We also had a staggering number of House retirements, so it's a little tough. These are seats that could have been held pretty easily. And
okay, stop. This is a bone of contention with the American media maggots, and this is a perfect time for me to inject. What happened is this. 45 limp-wristed, weak rhino pussies of the GOP decided that they weren't going to support President Trump, and they either resigned or retired and decided they weren't going to go for their seats again. Nature abhors a vacuum, and these squishes decided that by leaving, that was a great idea because as far as they were concerned, they saw the writing on the wall, and they weren't going to support President Trump. We could still have held the House today if 45 representatives under the GOP didn't decide that they were going to piss their pants and then leave because they didn't have the courage or the strength to fight for the GOP.
We had newcomers going in, and a lot of them worked very hard, but it's very difficult when you have that many retirements. We held a large number of campaign rallies with large numbers of people going to everyone. To the best of my knowledge, we didn't have a vacant or an empty seat. I'm sure you would have reported it if you spotted one.
Yeah.
Including 30 rallies in the last 60 days. And we saw the candidates that I supported achieve tremendous success last night. As an example of the 11 candidates we campaigned with during the last week.
Listen to this. This is a truism.
9 won last night. This vigorous campaigning stopped the blue wave that they talked about. I don't know if there ever was such a thing, but could have been. If we didn't do the campaigning, probably there could have been. And the history really will see what a good job we did in the final couple of weeks in terms of getting some tremendous people over the finish line. They really are tremendous people, but many of them were not known, but they will be known. This election marks the largest Senate gains for a president's party in a first midterm election since at least President Kennedy's in 1962. There have been only 4 midterm elections since 1934 in which a president's party has gained even a single Senate seat.
So, stop right there. Was this a net loss for the GOP? No, I'm here to tell you this was a gain. The Senate has the power. Yes, the representative, the House, is the people's house, but it's all about checks and balances. Checks and balances.
As of now, we picked up, it looks like 3. Could be 4. Perhaps it could be 2. But we picked up a lot. And most likely the number will be 3. You people probably know that better than I do at this point because you've looked at...
I like that, you people.
...the more recent numbers. 55 is the largest number of Republican senators in the last 100 years. In the last 80...
Stop. The greatest number of Republican senators in the last 100 years. Oh, under the guy with the dead orange cat on his head.
Years, a sitting president's party has only gained a cumulative total of 8 Senate seats, averaging 1 per decade. So if we picked up 2, 3, or 4, that's a big percentage of that number. So in the last 80 years, you think of that, only 8 seats. In President Obama's first midterm election, he lost 6 Senate seats, including in the deep blue state of Massachusetts. Republicans captured at least 4 Senate seats held by Democrat incumbents. And these are tremendously talented, hardworking people that did this. Indiana, North Dakota, Florida, Missouri. We also won 2 open Senate seats in Tennessee. I want to congratulate our great champion who did such a great job in Tennessee, Marcia. And in Utah. And Arizona is looking very good, really very good. She's done a terrific job. That was a tough race, and she's done a fantastic job. In each of these open seats...
By the way, in Arizona, that's still up. That's still up. That has not been settled.
Democrats recruited very strong candidates with substantial fundraising and media support. We were getting bombarded with money on the other side.
The Democrats outraised the Republicans significantly.
House Republicans dramatically outperformed historical precedents and overcame a historic number of retirements, the most House Republican retirements in 88 years. 43 House Republicans retired. Now, I will say this, that in many cases they were chairmen of committees, and they left because they weren't chairman, because the Republicans have a rule for 6 years. And what that does is wonderful in one way. It lets people come through the system and become chairman. And another way, it drives people out. Because when they're a chairman, they don't want to go and not be a chairman. You're the chairman of a committee, and you're a big deal. And all of a sudden, you're not doing that anymore. So they leave. We had a lot.
See, politicians hate that because that's the truth. He's speaking the truth, and you can't say that, not in D.C.
A lot of them leave. It's, I guess you can flip a coin as to which system is better. The Democrats do the other. Some of their folks have been on those committees for a long time as chairman. In 2010, President Obama's first midterm, he lost 63 seats. By contrast, as of the most current count, looks like around 27 House seats or something, and we'll figure that out pretty soon. We also had a slew of historic wins in the governor's races. The governor's races were incredible, against very well-funded, talented, and skilled Democrat candidates and people that worked very, very hard, respectfully, for those candidates.
Tell you what, let's cut to the chase here for a second, okay? Let's get right into some of the questioning.
Put partisanship aside and keep the American economic miracle going strong. It is a miracle. We're doing so well. And I've said it at a lot of rallies. Some of you have probably heard it so much you don't want to hear it again. But when people come to my office, presidents, prime ministers, they all congratulate me almost the first thing on what we've done economically, because it is really amazing. And our steel industry is back.
Agreed.
Our aluminum industry is starting to do really well.
And as I've said before, these are all industries that Barack Hussein Obama, swore were never coming back. Hashtag bullshit alert.
There are industries that were dead. Our miners are working again. We must all work together to protect our military. We have to do that. To support our law enforcement, secure our borders, and advance really great policy, including environmental policy. We want crystal clean water. We want beautiful, perfect air. Air and water has to be perfect. At the same time, we don't want to put ourselves at a disadvantage to other countries who are very competitive with us – and who don't abide by the rules at all. We don't want to hurt our jobs. We don't want to hurt our factories. We don't want companies leaving. We want to be totally competitive, and we are. And right now we have just about the cleanest air, the cleanest water we've ever had, and it's always going to be that way. We insist on it. So environmental is very important to me. And with that, I'll take a few questions if you'd like. Whoa. I didn't know what happened. All right, go ahead, John. That was a lot of hand shooting up so quickly. There's a lot to talk about.
Mr. President. Okay, now let me tell you what happens in this, because it's important that you understand there's an intern who is a young female working this room whose job it is to provide the microphone to the people, to the reporters who want to ask the questions. Remember that. This becomes important later on.
President, you talked at length just now about bipartisanship. The presumed Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, talked about it last night. I'm sure that's encouraging for the American people. But do you really believe, given what the relationship has been like between this White House and the Democratic Party, that that will happen?
I think there's a good chance. I think there's a very good chance.
If I could just finish,
it will happen.
Will you have to compromise on certain issues to the point where it could hurt you in 2020? And do you expect that when the Democrats take over the chairmanship of all these important committees, you're going to get hit with a blizzard of subpoenas on everything from the Russia investigation to your cell phone use to your tax returns?
Ready? Then you're going to, if that happens, then we're going to do the same thing, and government comes to a halt.
Listen to that. It's tit for tat with Trump.
And I would blame them, because they now are going to be coming up with policy. They're the majority in the House. I expect that they will come up with some fantastic ideas that I can support on the environment, on so many different things, including prescription drug prices, which we've made a big dent in already.
By the way, that was Fox News asking the first question.
Including some of the things that we're working on for the vets. We've gotten choice approved. We've got a lot of things approved, but they have some other elements that we want. There are many things we can get along on without a lot of trouble, that we agree very much with them and they agree with us. I would like to see bipartisanship. I'd like to see unity. And I think we have a very good chance of, and maybe not on everything, but I think we have a very good chance of seeing that. Go ahead.
One question on the lame duck, sir, and one on your cabinet. You toyed with the idea during the campaign of a shutdown before the midterms in order to secure border wall funding. Are you prepared to go on a shutdown strategy during the lame duck, since this might be your last best chance?
Not necessarily
to secure that.
Look, I speak to Democrats all the time. They agree that a wall is necessary. A wall is necessary. And as you know, we're building the wall. We've started, but we should build it at one time, not in chunks.
But you want much more money, and you want much sooner.
No, we need the money to build the wall, the whole wall, not pieces of it all over. And we are doing it. Now we have the military. Now we have other elements of a wall that are pretty nasty, to be honest with you, but nevertheless, it's pretty hard to get through it. But no, I'd like to see the wall. Many of the people that we'll be dealing with, in 2006, they approved the wall, essentially. It was a very strong border fence, but it was the same thing. And they all approved it. They all agreed. I have statements from every one of them. We have them saying, we need the wall. I mean, they sound like me. Mm-hmm. But we do need it, because we have people coming, and I'm not just talking about the caravans. We have people coming through our border that you physically can't put that many people. It's a 2,000-mile stretch. You can't put that many people along that stretch to guard it. And even if you did, tremendous fighting would ensue. So we need the wall. Many Democrats know we need the wall. And we're just going to have to see what happens. I mean, I will be fighting for it. They have done everything in their power to make sure. I got the military, $700 billion and $716 billion. The wall is a tiny, tiny fraction of the cost of that. But their whole agenda has been to try not giving me anything for the wall. I really believe politically they're hurting themselves. I actually think politically that's a good thing for me, but I want to get the wall up because we need it.
So no shutdown scenario?
I don't know. I can't tell you that. No, I can't commit to that, but it's possible.
And can you give us clarity, sir, on your thinking currently, now after the midterms, about your Attorney General and your Deputy Attorney General? Do they have long-term job security?
I'd rather answer that at a little bit different time. We're looking at a lot of different things, including cabinet. I'm very happy with most of my cabinet. We're looking at different people for different positions. It's very common after the midterms. I didn't want to do anything before the midterms. But I will tell you that, for the most part, I'm extremely happy with my cabinet. I think Mike Pompeo has fit in so beautifully. He's done an incredible job.
How about your Interior Secretary?
We're looking at that, and I do want to study whatever is being said.
Is he in jeopardy?
I think he's doing an excellent job, but we will take a look at that in a very strong, and we'll probably have an idea about that in about a week.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you. Wow, this is... Go ahead, Jim. He gave me a fair interview the other day, so I might as well ask him a question.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President. And picking up there, you told me the other day that you are an open book. So
I think I am an open book.
So point blank, Democrats go after your tax returns. Will you try to block that, or will you allow them to have them?
Well, look, as I've told you, they're under audit. They have been for a long time. They're extremely complex. People wouldn't understand them. They're done by among the biggest and best law firms in the country. Same thing with the accounting firms. The accountants are a very, very large, powerful firm from the standpoint of respect. They're highly respected. Big firm. A great law firm, you know it very well. They do these things. They put them in. But people don't understand tax returns. Now, I did do a filing of over 100 pages, I believe, which is in the offices. And when people went and saw that filing and they saw the magnitude of it, they were very disappointed. And they saw the detail. You'd get far more from that. And I guess we filed that now 3 times. But you get far more from that than you could ever get from a tax return. But when you're under audit, and I'm on a very continuous audit because there are so many companies, and it is a very big company, far bigger than you would even understand. But it's a great company, but it's big, and it's complex, and it's probably feet high. It's a very complex instrument, and I think that people wouldn't understand it. But if I were finished with the audit, I would have an open mind to it. I would say that, but I don't want to do it during the audit. And really, no lawyer, even from the other side, they say often, not always, but when you're under audit, you don't subject it to that. You get it done, and then you release it. So when that happens, if that happens, I would certainly have an open mind to it.
So that means if the audit is still on, you will not turn over the tax returns, or you'll fight to block it?
When it's under audit, no, nobody would. Nobody turns over a return when it's under audit. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, please.
One, I was tempted to ask you why you like Oprah so much, but I think I'll go on to the question that...
why do I like Oprah? What kind of a question is it?
Yeah, just asking. Just curious. But the real question...
He's a comedian here.
The real question
I do like Oprah, by the way. I do. She was a person I knew well, came to my place in Palm Beach often, and I have a lot of respect for her. Unfortunately, she didn't do the trick.
The real question is, you just sat up here and said that from this podium that are you offering an my way or highway scenario to the Democrats? You're saying that if they start investigating you,
see, that's not what he said at all.
You can play that game and investigate them.
That's not what he said at all.
And I think I know more than they know.
Can you compartmentalize that and still continue to work with them for the benefit of the rest of the country,
No.
or are all bets off?
No. If they do that, then it's just all it is a warlike posture.
And so then, wait a minute, then the follow-up... I'm sorry, John.
You heard my answer. Go ahead.
Well, since it's Jim, I'll let it go.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to challenge you on...
Stand by. It's Jim Acosta. Listen and watch.
One of the statements that you made in the tail end of the campaign in the midterms.
Here we go.
If you don't mind, Mr. President, that this caravan was an invasion. As you know, Mr. President,
I consider it to be an invasion.
As you know, Mr. President, the caravan was not an invasion. It's a group of migrants moving up from Central...
Okay, do you understand what he's doing? He starts by asking a question, then he's going to tell the President of the United States what something really is. The point of this is an opportunity for Jim Acosta to get on a platform and do nothing but proffer exposition. As the attorneys would say in a courtroom, where's your question? Is there a question buried in there? Ask your question like a regular journalist and be quiet and pass the mic. That doesn't happen because, as we all know, it's all about, just like it's all about Barack Hussein Obama, it's all about Jim Acosta.
America towards the border with the U.S.
Thank you for telling me that.
Why did you characterize it as such?
Because I consider it an invasion. You and I have a difference of opinion.
But do you think that you demonized immigrants in this election to try to keep them?
I want them to come into the country, but they have to come in legally. You know, they have to come in, Jim, through a process. I want it to be a process.
Jim, they're not immigrants yet. They're migrants, but they're not here. Once they try to enter and they're at the border, it's different.
Process. And I want people to come in, and we need the people.
Your campaign.
Wait. You know why we need the people, don't you? Because we have hundreds of companies moving in. We need the people.
But your campaign had an ad showing migrants climbing over walls and so on.
That's true. But they weren't actors.
They're not going to be doing that.
They weren't actors. Well, no, it's true. Do you think they were actors? They weren't actors. They didn't come from Hollywood. Right. These were people. This was an actual.
Okay, now stop. Here's what you need to know. As this tete-a-tete is going back and forth, there are tons of reporters in the background who are sticking their hands up. They're starting to talk a little bit. Now, Jim Acosta, even at this point, has had much more time speaking to the president than anybody else has. The room is packed with reporters who all would like to be able to ask their own questions. And so he continues. He will not relent. That is to say, Jim Acosta, because, again, it's all about him.
It happened a few days ago. And
they're hundreds of miles away, though. They're hundreds and hundreds of miles away.
That's not a question, Jim. That's a statement. You're there to proffer statements and not ask questions. Those are your opinions. You're not there to ask an opinion or to state an opinion. You're there to ask questions and get answers. Except, no, you're not. You're CNN's Jim Acosta.
That's not an invasion.
Honestly, I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN.
Here we go.
And if you did it well,
here we go.
Let me ask, if I may ask one other question. Mr. President, if I may ask one other question. Are you worried?
That's enough. That's enough.
Mr. President, I was
enough.
going to ask one of the other folks.
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am.
The intern starts to grab the microphone, and he holds onto it and pulls it away from the intern because as far as Jim Acosta is concerned, he's not done, and he's Jim Acosta.
Mr. President,
that's enough.
Mr. President, I'd want.
By the way, he holds onto it and pulls it back from the intern. The intern, this little young lady there in a dress, stops, drops it, and gets back down, so she's out of the camera view.
Peter, if I may ask on the Russian.
Jim Acosta, by the way, later says that he's assaulted by this young woman. Are you fucking kidding me?
Investigation. Are you concerned that you may have?
I'm not concerned about anything with the Russian investigation because it's a hoax. That's enough. Put down the mic.
Mr. President, are you worried about indictments?
This is a directive by the President of the United States. Now it's time to do what the President suggests, but no.
Indictments coming down in this investigation.
Mr. President.
I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN. Go ahead.
I think that's unfair.
You're a very rude person. The way you treat Sarah Huckabee is horrible. And the way you treat other people are horrible. You shouldn't treat people that way. Go ahead. Go ahead, Peter. Go ahead.
In Jim's defense, I've traveled with him and watched him. He's a diligent reporter who busts his butt.
Well, I'm not a big fan of yours either, so
I understand.
To be honest.
So let me ask you a question if I can. You repeatedly said...
You aren't the best.
Mr. President,
That's
you repeatedly...
great.
Over the course of the...
Just sit down, please. Well, when you report fake news, no.
Okay, by the way, this is Jim Acosta back at the mic. Jim Acosta stands back up again.
When you report fake news, which CNN does a lot, you are the enemy of the people. Go ahead.
Mr. President, over the course of the last several days of the campaign, sir, at the end of the campaign, you repeatedly said that Americans need to fear Democrats. You said Democrats would unleash a wave of violent crime that endangers families everywhere. Why are you pitting Americans? Why are you pitting Americans against one another, sir?
Peter, what are you trying to be him?
No,
Peter,
I'm just asking the question.
Peter, are you trying to be him, meaning Jim Acosta?
I'll tell you. Very simple. Because they're very weak on crime. Because they have often suggested, members and people within the Democrat Party at a high level have suggested getting rid of ICE, getting rid of law enforcement. That's not going to happen, okay? We want to be strong on the borders. We want to be strong on law enforcement, and I want to cherish ICE because...
Okay, let me tell you right now, it's the bottom of the hour. It's 9:30. It's 12:30 on the East Coast. I'm not taking a break. We're continuing. This is too good to pass up.
ICE does a fantastic job. What they do for us is so really, it's so unrecognized how good a job they do. So we want to take care of them, and we want to hold them very close because they do a good job.
But the question,
okay,
to be clear, though, the question,
Thank you very much.
Why are you
sit down? Please.
But the question, but you didn't answer my question. Just very simply, the question is, why are you pitting Americans against one another, sir?
I'm not.
Is that how you view citizens of this country?
I'll tell you what. We won a lot of elections last night. We did very well last night. And
but in many ways,
I think it's going to have.
This is nothing but an assault on President Trump. Do you think that any one of these people speaking right now would have spoken to Barack Hussein Obama in this tone and would have done so for 2 years? What you're seeing from President Trump, what you're hearing from President Trump, is the result of him being treated in this fashion for 2+ years, and he's a little tired of it. The lack of respect, the lack of civility, on the press.
I think it's going to have a very positive impact. I watched NBC this morning. They didn't report it exactly correctly, but that's that's the fact with NBC. Nothing I can do about that. But I want this country to have protection. We want security in our country. I want security, Peter. I mean, you maybe don't think it's so important. And I think when you don't have it, you are indeed unleashing crime. I feel that.
You said you would sign an executive order on birthright citizenship. Are you still going to sign the executive order on birthright citizenship?
You'll ask me that question a little bit later. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead, sure.
Thank you, Mr. President. The investigation by the special counsel Robert Mueller has been going on since last spring. It's been over your head.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been over your head, over Republicans' head, during the midterms as well. Is this an opportunity for you, Mr. President, to end that investigation? Would you consider removing Mr. Mueller from his position?
I could have ended it any time I wanted. I didn't. And there was no collusion. There was no anything. I didn't.
Okay, stop right here. Let me report something that you probably already intuit, but this is what President Trump knew at the time. He had the information that he was going to ask and demand the resignation of Jeff Sessions. He knew this. This is a press conference, and after being treated in this fashion, I'm sure the brainhousing group of President Trump was, you know what, I'm not making this announcement here. You guys don't deserve this. I'll make it later. But he already had that information, wasn't going to talk about it here.
They went after hackers in Moscow. I don't know about that. They went after people with tax problems from years ago. They went after people with loans and other things. Had nothing to do with my campaign. This is a investigation where many, many millions of dollars has been spent, and there's no collusion. It was supposed to be on collusion. There's no collusion, and I think it's very bad for our country. I will tell you. I think it's a shame. And a poll came out today, by the way, from NBC, or at least I saw it on NBC, where a majority of the people do not agree with the Mueller investigation, or it wasn't approved. They have approval and disapproval, and it had a much higher disapproval. It should end, because it's very bad for our country.
So if it's bad...
And I'm not just talking about the tremendous expense. And the other thing is they should look at the other side also. They only look at one side. They're not looking at all of the things that came up during this investigation. They don't do that. They should also get people that can be fair, not 13 or 14 or 17. I call them the angry Democrats. They are angry people. And it's a very unfair thing for this country. It's a very, very, forget about unfair to me, it's very bad for our country.
Okay. So, Mr. President, if it's Mr. President,
just
wait just a moment. If it's unfair to the country and it's costing millions of dollars, why don't you just
give him the money?
See, this is so patently unfair. All the rest of the reporters that are in there, and there's probably 50 to 60 of them, they're all wanting a chance at the microphone to at least ask one question. Yet none of these people are interested in relinquishing the microphone because, again, it's all about them. And as far as everyone else is concerned, all those other journalists, they can go to hell.
Please, I've answered the question. Okay. Go ahead, take the. Well, I'll give you I will give you voter suppression. You just have to sit down, please. Sit down. I didn't call you. I'll give you voter suppression. Take a look at the CNN.
So some black chick gets up and starts screaming at him. She doesn't have the microphone, and he has to tell her to sit down when the microphone was given to somebody else. This is the kind of a press conference, and now you understand why he doesn't have these things on a daily basis. This isn't a press conference. This is essentially an all-out verbal assault on the president.
And polls, how inaccurate they were.
And none of these people would have treated Barack Hussein Obama in this fashion, not in the slightest.
That's called voter suppression. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. President.
I'm not responding. I'm responding to... Excuse me.
This is, again, this other black chick who thinks that it's incumbent upon her, even though another one of her reporters has the microphone, that she's much more important than anyone else in the room, including the guy with the microphone and including the President of the United States.
I'm not responding to you. I'm talking to this gentleman. Would you please sit down? Excuse me. Would you please sit down? Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now that the House of Representatives
very hostile.
has fled.
It's such a hostile media. It's
yes,
so
it is.
sad.
Yes, it
you
is.
You asked me about. No, you rudely interrupted him.
This is the President of the United States having to treat the press like children. If they're going to act like children, which is what they're doing, then they should expect no more than to be treated in the fashion in which they're acting.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Do your demands remain the same to the United States Congress on immigration in exchange for a DACA fix, in exchange for an amnesty for 1.7 million? Are you willing to change any of those demands that you gave to Congress earlier?
I think we could really do something having to do with DACA. And what really happened with DACA, we could have done some pretty good work on DACA, but a judge ruled that DACA was okay. Had the judge not ruled that way, I think we would have made a deal.
And the Ninth did that today as well, again, buttressing that original ruling.
Once the judge ruled that way, the Democrats didn't want to talk anymore. So we'll see how it works out at the Supreme Court.
Do you still...
Go ahead.
See, this guy asks one question. There are tons of other reporters waiting to ask their questions. He relinquishes the mic. That's reasonable.
From where? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Which group? Where do you want me to take the question from? Yeah, go ahead, ma'am. Go ahead. Take the. Oh, either one. Or both. Are you together? Go ahead.
We're not together. Mr. President, how do you respond to critics who say that your message on the
I don't know if you heard, the international press wanted to ask questions now.
Campaign towards minorities have been polarizing.
I don't think it has been at all.
But is the election of two Muslim women, one of them is veiled to the House, which is making history. Is this a rebuke of this message,
I don't
do you
understand
think?
What you're saying. What?
But is it a rebuke of this message? Do you think that this is more reflective of multi-ethnic and multicultural America?
Well, that question, I can only say this. You look at the...
Okay, so this is a question promoting Muslims. Plain and simple.
Employment and unemployment numbers for African Americans, for Asian Americans, for Hispanic Americans, they're at a historic high. A poll came out recently where my numbers with Hispanics and with African Americans are the highest, the best they've ever been. That took place 2 or 3 days ago, the poll. I have the best numbers with African American and Hispanic American that I've ever had.
And that's true. I just told you at the beginning of the show about those very same things.
Before. Then you saw the same poll. So I can't say that. I can say this. You look at median income, you look at all of the employment and unemployment numbers, they're doing the best they've ever done. And it reflects, it really is very reflective in the polls. Yes, go ahead.
By the way, people that are in touch with this sort of thing, as with Dave and myself and other persons as well, Michigan is rolling downhill rather rapidly.
Mr. President, I'm from Brooklyn.
Oh, speaking of which, Muslim Keith Ellison, wife beater, parenthesis. The people decided that they were going to elect him, despite all of that, as Attorney General. Yay, Ellison.
So you'll understand me.
I understand you very well.
My question is on health care. How is it possible to keep premiums down and cover pre-existing conditions without the individual mandate to fund it?
Well, first of all, what we're doing, and if you look at the Department of Labor also.
Okay, there you go. A reasonable question. The guy relinquishes the mic. This is the way things should go.
Secretary Azar, what they've done, they've come up with some incredible health care plans, which is causing great competition and driving the prices right down. But we are getting rid of the individual mandate because it was very unfair to a lot of people. But at the same time, we're covering the people that need it. But the individual mandate was a disaster because people that couldn't necessarily afford it were having to pay for the privilege of not having to pay for health care. And it was bad health care at that. So we are working many plans for health care. We're creating tremendous competition. We had Obamacare repealed and replaced. Unfortunately, one person changed his mind at the last moment. And we had no Democrat support. I have to say that. We didn't have one vote. We would have repealed it, replaced it. We would have had a large-scale, very good health care plan. Now we're doing it a different way. But getting rid of the individual mandate is a very, very popular thing and a very important thing, and people very much appreciate it. Go ahead. No, that's enough. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, sir. Two questions. One, I know you went through the results, and you obviously studied them late last night. What lesson did you learn most from looking at those results? Was there one thing that, as you kind of reviewed them, that you'll change your strategy, not just for Congress, but kind of going forward? And then just a follow-up question.
Well, I think the results that I've learned, and maybe confirmed, I think people like me. I think people like the job I'm doing, frankly. Because if you look at every place I went to do a rally, I couldn't do it.
That's actually true. His poll numbers are better at this point in his presidency than Obama's in his presidency.
With everybody. And it was very hard to do it with people in Congress because there's just too many, there would be too many stops. But I did it with the Senate. I did it with Andy Barr, as you know. And he won. He won a very tough race against McGrath. It was a very, very tough race in Kentucky. And he was down quite a bit, and I went there, and we had a tremendous, very successful, some of you were at that rally, and he won that race. But I could only do that so much because there are just so many players involved. But I did focus on the Senate, and we had tremendous success with the Senate, really tremendous.
Can I ask you one more question? Sorry, Mr. President, one more question if you don't mind. I'm so sorry, sir. It's a rare opportunity. A lot of people are going to be rushing to Iowa, rushing to New Hampshire. You know that the Democrats are already looking ahead to 2020. Do you want to lock down your ticket right now, sir? Will the vice president be your running mate in 2020?
Well, I haven't asked him, but I hope so. Where are you? Mike, will you be my running mate? Stand up, Mike, please. Raise your right hand. No, I'm only kidding. Will you? Thank you. Okay, good. The answer is yes. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
That was unexpected, but I feel very fine. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Going back to the Russia investigation and the potential investigations from the now Democratic majority in Congress.
Okay, so did you notice that we're not having anything positive? We're not talking about anything positive. We're not bringing up anything positive. We're not talking about the economy. We're not talking about jobs coming back. We're not talking about the least amount of unemployment in American Black and Hispanic history. No, it's all... See how they've gone back to Russia and Trump, where there is nothing, but they want to make something because they're not getting it yet.
Some say that you could stop all this by declassifying.
I could fire everybody right now, but I don't want to stop it because politically I don't like stopping it. Yeah. It's a disgrace. It should have never been started because there was no crime. Everybody has conflicts. They all have conflicts over there that are beyond.
I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Two Hells Angels or two cops can keep a secret if one of them is dead. If Mueller had crap on Trump, you would have heard about it literally months ago. That crap can't be contained. And if it were out, it would be heralded from the halls for months and months and weeks. You're not hearing any of that.
Anything that anybody...
And so far, what the Mueller investigation has revolved around, and all they're prosecuting and the indictments that have come down, those are crimes of process, not of any substance whatsoever.
What he's ever seen in terms of conflicts, from the fact that people ask for jobs, from the fact that they have very good friends on the other side, like really good friends like Comey, who, by the way, lied and leaked, and
Yes.
also leaked
Yes.
classified information. Nothing
Yes, that's why I call him Jimmy the Leak.
happened there. It might, perhaps, maybe something's happening that I don't know about. I stay away from it. But you know what I do? I let it just go on. They're wasting a lot of money, but I let it go on because I don't want to do that. But you're right. I could end it right now. I could say that investigation is over.
And remember, he already knows that Jeff Sessions is going bye-bye. But he's not telling them that right now.
But it's really it's a disgrace, frankly, and it's an embarrassment to our country. It's an embarrassment to the people of our country, and it's too bad. Go ahead.
What about the declassification of the documents? Some say that would clear it all up.
We're looking at that.
You're
No,
still
we're looking
considering
at that very seriously. Declassification, we're looking at very seriously.
Okay, can I ask one more question?
It's amazing how people on the other side just don't want those documents declassified. But no, we're looking at that very carefully. I certainly wanted to wait till after the midterms.
Can I ask you one more question, Mr. President? Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. You have campaigned as a pro-life president. You have defended the rights of unborn children. You now have a divided Congress. It's unlikely to pass any pro-life bills.
Very tough issue.
How are you going to push forward your pro-life agenda?
Just going to push. I've been pushing. I've done a very good job, too. We're very happy with me. But it's a tough issue for the two sides. There's no question about it.
But what are you going to do?
There is great what am I going to do? I won't be able to explain that to you.
Okay, let me tell you something very brief and insert right here. Until I saw the movie Gosnell, I really was, I can't say I was ambivalent about abortion, but it wasn't my number one topic. Folks, when it comes back out, and it will, out of the movie theaters, it was de-rezzed out of the movie theaters as quickly as possible, but it was an incredibly shocking movie. Gosnell, when it comes out, see this movie, Gosnell.
Because it is an issue that is a very divisive, polarizing issue. But there is a solution. I think I have that solution, and nobody else does. We're going to be working on that. Yes, go ahead, please. She took your place, but that's okay.
Mr. President, just a quick question on rural America. In states like Indiana, North Dakota, folks turned out for Republican candidates. Could you talk a little bit about what this means for your agenda in terms of trade and the Farm Bill?
The Farm Bill is working really well. I mean, we could have had it approved any time, but we're looking to get work rules approved. The farmers want it. I'd like it. The problem is the Democrats are not giving us the 10 votes that we need. Everybody wants it. The farmers want it, but the Democrats are not approving the Farm Bill with work rules. We could have it very fast without the work rules, but we want the work rules in, and the Democrats just don't want to vote for that. So at some point, they'll have to pay maybe a price. Jeff, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Have you seen any evidence that Russia or China intervened in yesterday's election?
Well, we're going to make a full report, and unlike the previous administration, we've done a lot of work on that issue. And
that's right. Remember, it was Barack Obama. It was under his regime in which, allegedly, all this Russian collusion and influence took place, did it not?
If you look, speak with the FBI, speak with the Department of Justice, speak to Homeland Security. We've spent a lot of time. It gets very little coverage in the papers. I mean, you cover the nonsense part, but you don't cover the important. This is very important. And we have been working very hard on China and Russia and everybody else looking into our elections or meddling with our elections. But people tend not to write about it. But we have worked very hard, as you've probably heard.
What do you intend to say, sir, to President Xi and to President Putin when you meet with them later this month?
Well, I have a good relationship with both. I know President Xi better, but I think I have a very good relationship with both. I actually had a very good meeting in Russia that you people didn't agree with, but that's okay. It doesn't much matter, obviously. Because
you mean
here
Helsinki?
I am. But the fact is that I had a very...
See, now they're going to push Putin. Listen, they're going to push Putin and the collusion between Trump and Putin.
Very good meeting, a very, very good meeting with President Putin. And a lot was discussed about security, about Syria, about Ukraine, about the fact that President Obama allowed a very large part of Ukraine to be taken. And right now you have submarines off that particular parcel that we're talking about.
That was President Putin who annexed Crimea, sir.
That was President Obama's regime.
Right.
That was during President Obama. right? That was not during me.
But it
That
was
during-
President
No, that was
Putin, sir, who
President
did the
Obama.
annexation.
No, it was President Obama.
It was President
that
Obama,
allowed it to
correct.
happen. Had nothing to do with me. Okay, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
You fucking dimwit.
Thank you, Mr. President. Cordelia Lynch, Sky News. You're a man who likes to win, but last night was not an absolute victory for you.
I'll be honest. I thought it was a very...
Okay, this bint clearly doesn't know anything about American history, so you can take a big cup of shut the fuck up and sit down, Ms. Redcoat. The funny thing is that, it was a great victory if you were listening to the beginning of the show, but they're not there to tout anything about a victory of Trump. It's all adversarial, completely adversarial. Let's see, would you ask that question of Theresa May if you were back in the UK? And I don't think you would.
Close to complete victory. When you look at it from the standpoint of negotiation, when you look at it from the standpoint of deal-making, because it's all about deal-making, again, if we had the majority and we had 1 or 2 or 3 votes to play with, we would have been at a standstill. I really believe that we have a chance to get along very well with the Democrats, and if that's the case, we can do a tremendous amount of legislation and get it approved by both parties. So I consider it to be, hey, look, I won Georgia. President Obama campaigned very hard in Georgia. Oprah Winfrey campaigned very, very hard all over the television. I said, this is going to be tough. I only had me. I didn't have anybody else. And I went to Georgia. And
he never will.
We had one of the largest crowds that anybody here has seen ever at a political rally. And you know what? He won. And he won actually by, pretty good margin. He won. And then we went to Florida. And they had celebrities all over the place. And a man who happens to be a very smart person was running, Ron DeSantis. And people didn't give him a chance. And I went and we did some great work. And they're going to have a great governor of the state of Florida. And then we talked about the Senate. And a lot of money was pouring in for the Democrat. This is a man who's been in office for like 44 years or something. This is a man who's like a professional at getting elected and being at office. So he's not, Bill Nelson, not easy to beat, okay? But they had a lot of celebrity coming out for Nelson. They had everybody coming out for Nelson. And Rick Scott won, and I helped him. And I think we've done an amazing job. And you could look at many other places.
Well, this insert right now, that's a bone of contention. It's not absolutely etched in stone, but President Trump didn't know that at the time.
You just take a look at some of the other places. And we just got the word that in Iowa, you have a governor who just got extended, who's Kim just got extended, and numerous other places. I think it was a great victory. I'll be honest. I think it was a great victory. And actually, some of the news this morning was that it was, in fact, a great victory. But if you look at it from the standpoint of gridlock, I really believe there's going to be much less gridlock because of the way this is going than any other way.
Mr. President, quick follow-up on that.
Wait, sit down, please. Go ahead.
Sit down,
Thank you, Mr.
please.
President. Let me ask you about one of the campaign promises you made down the stretch, which was a 10% tax cut for the middle class.
Yeah.
You just talked about gridlock. Democrats, they now run the House Ways and Means Committee. If it means a tax cut of some kind for the middle class, but that means raising rates elsewhere, corporations on the wealthiest, is that a trade-off that you would be willing to make and able to enact a middle class tax?
You know that this will have to be now proposed, because if we did it now, we don't have the votes in the...
What is happening there, and will your...
It is... Everybody has conflicts. They all have conflicts over there that are beyond anything that anybody's ever seen in terms of conflicts.
Speaking of conflict, there's what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to go ahead to the one. This was almost a screaming match between, I can only conclude, a racist black female. And I'm going to listen to Trump continue, and I'm trying to run through the timeline of YouTube here to see if I can find that spot as we continue with President Trump's press conference on Wednesday, the day directly following the midterms.
From the fact that people ask for jobs, from the fact that they have very good friends on the other side, like really good friends like Comey, who, by the way, go ahead, please.
Mr. President, thank you very much. Two questions. One is, you had talked about leaders who had called to congratulate you. Did President Putin call to congratulate you? And will you, in fact, meet with him at lunch this coming weekend?
Well, as I understand it, we're having, and I guess a lot of you are going over, we're having a lunch for numerous countries. I'll be there. I believe President Putin is going to be there. We don't have anything scheduled. I don't think we have anything scheduled in Paris.
By the way, that's for Veterans Day coming up.
And I'm coming back very quickly. I'm going over. This is a great event. This is an important, really, this is going to be a very important and I think a very beautiful ceremony. I'm looking forward to going, and we're representing the incredible heroes of the world, but the heroes of our country from World War I. And so I'll be going there, and I am very proud to go there.
Did he call you?
I don't think we have time set aside.
Let me skip forward here.
She's a very smart woman. She's done a very good job. She was really, I mean, she's had a very...
Did she promise that they wouldn't seek to impeach you?
She's had a very, very... We didn't talk about impeaching. We didn't talk... What do? Do you impeach somebody because he created the greatest economic success in the history of our country? Let's impeach him because the country is so successful. Let's impeach him. Has he done anything wrong? They asked somebody, has he done anything wrong? No, but let's impeach him anyway. And they also said, let's impeach Justice Kavanaugh. Let's impeach him. And now they have the second woman coming out, that the first to second. And I hate to say this, but it was
Let me
public.
go forward and see if I can find this now.
What are you going to do about it, sir? What are you going to do about it?
Go ahead.
You cut off the funding.
Mr. President, you've said...
No, we have given funding for that, a lot of funding. But I do believe it's a problem. And can I tell you what? It's a problem that I don't like even a little bit. Go ahead.
Aixa Diaz with Hearst Television. You've said, pretend I'm on the ballot yesterday. You called it a referendum on your presidency. Many local districts across the country rejected your midterm message, particularly suburban wings.
Let me see if I can find
the
this.
sanctions. What I've done
The show's
is
going to
I
wrap
said,
up here pretty soon.
We're not going to do it that way. We're going to let some of the oil go out to these countries that really do need it, because I don't want to drive the oil prices up to $100 or $150 a barrel, which could happen very easily. It's a very fragile market, very, very fragile. I know it very well, and it's the absolute right decision. And they'll get tougher as time goes by, maybe, but I don't want to have any effect on the oil prices worldwide where I drive them up, because I consider that to be a tax, and I don't like taxes.
We have a peace process between Israel and Palestine.
Please.
The peace process is over.
Who? Oh, congratulations to John Tester. Congratulations. I'm sure you're very unhappy about that. Go ahead.
Mr.
Yes,
President,
please, go ahead.
Can you address the...
We'll take a couple of more and then we'll go.
Can you address concerns in places like Georgia where people waited in line to vote for hours, where voting machines weren't working in certain districts, and
You
there
think that's
wasn't
the
power?
reason that the candidate lost?
Well, there are concerns being raised that wasn't...
I wasn't
well,
involved
access
in
to-
Georgia.
I know, but
other
as
than I
president-
love the state. I
Yes,
do
but
love
as
the state.
president of the United States, are you concerned about the access that people are having to voting?
I heard it was very efficient in Georgia. I heard it was very efficient. But again, you'd have to ask the state governments, because just one of those things you're going to have to ask them. Yeah, go ahead, please. Please, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. You expressed some concerns about social media companies unfairly censoring conservatives during the election. Do you anticipate working with Democrats to regulate these companies, or are you satisfied with the
I
way
would do
things
that,
are?
yeah. I would look at that very seriously. I think it's a serious problem. At the same time, you start getting into speech. It's a very dangerous problem. That could be the beginning. So it's very dangerous. Believe it or not, I'm one that really likes free speech.
Okay, hang on just 1 second. I think I found the cut that I'm looking for. This is about 6 minutes. This is what I wanted to get to, and I think I've found it. Here we go.
Senator of PBS, the White House correspondent. I'm going to play that exchange he had with her.
Here we go.
Hi, Mr. President. Yami Shalcender with PBS NewsHour. On the campaign trail, you called yourself a nationalist. Some people saw...
Okay, let me start this over just a little bit. We're going to go into a bit of overtime until we get through with this, because I want you to hear this. And what President Trump says about this individual is absolutely true, in my opinion. But you have to ask yourself, would any other representative in journalism have asked anything remotely similar to this in this fashion to President Obama at that time? And the answer, I believe, is clearly no.
Michelle Sender with PBS NewsHour. On the campaign trail, you called yourself a nationalist. Some people saw that as emboldening white nationalists. Now people are also saying that
that's such a racist
There
question.
are some people that say that now the Republican Party is seen as supporting white nationalists because of your rhetoric. What do you make of that?
I don't believe it. I don't know. Why do I have my highest poll numbers ever with African Americans? Why do I have among the highest poll numbers with African Americans? I mean, why do I have my highest poll numbers? That's such a...
Obama, in my opinion, was a racist. Eric Holder, in my opinion, was a racist. You didn't hear one reporter bracing them on their racial views at all. But the point here, and this was my entire point, is journalism today, as it's practiced by the American media maggots, exists to do nothing but tear down Donald Trump. And he's essentially the only thing left standing between you and me. And Donald Trump, obviously, according to what she says, he's nothing but a white nationalist. Well, if you say the N-word, nationalist, then you have to throw white in ahead of that.
Racist question. Honestly, I mean, I know you have it written down and you're going to tell me. Let me tell you, it's a racist question.
And Mr. President, I
love it. You know what the word is? I love our country. I do. You have nationalists, you have globalists. I also...
Do you think any other president except Trump, any other squish that, let's say, had gotten in there, like Romney or Bush, you think they would have answered in this question? They would have taken whatever crap was thrown at them.
I love the world, and I don't mind helping the world, but we have to straighten out our country first. We have a lot of problems. Excuse me, but to say that, what you said, is so insulting to me. It's a very terrible thing that you said.
Absolutely correct. And that's why I wanted to give you a taste of this conference today. Or from Wednesday, from yesterday. The point is not to ask questions. The point for the American media maggots today is to simply get on a platform and showboat for their friends in the media.
Monsieur has unlocked!
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here on the SHR Media Network. If you want to contact me, you can find me on Twitter at BZEP, at BZEP, or my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net. Promotional consideration by the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works and the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. And also from Pratt & Whitney, Thrust, engines with thrust you can trust. By the way, thought I should tell you that my tiaras are in fact by My Little Pony. Thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team, with whom I will definitely be consorting in less than an hour. Thank you for listening so kindly tonight. Thanks for listening live. Thanks for being in chat. Thanks for listening later on in podcast. I get a ton of hits in podcast. I appreciate each and every one of my listeners. Thank you ever again for taking the time out in your busy day. Have a great weekend. Let's do it all again next Tuesday night. God bless. Take care. Be safe.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.